Howdy, and welcome back to another week of the Home Turf Podcast. I'm your co-host, Justin Chen.
And I'm Braxton Dore, your other co-host. And this week, we are introducing a new guest speaker. He's been on the pod before, but this is his first time this year. Welcome, Luke White, sports editor for the Battalion.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I've been watching y'all from afar and love what y'all been doing, so glad I could get the chance to come on here and talk a bit of A&M football.
Absolutely. We love to have you, Luke. All right, let's get into things with the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Texas A&M Aggies facing off in the last edition of the Southwest Conference Classic. So, thoughts, questions, what's going on here, guys?
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those games where year after year, it's always neck and neck, regardless of how good the teams are, regardless of a trajectory of where their season goes. With the Southwest Classic, I feel like you can kind of throw all bets out the window because both teams really seem to give their all, and no addition to this rivalry really disappoints. And I think having it at a neutral site, like you mentioned, the last year at AT&T Stadium. So I think there's a bit of sentimentality with that before the game returns to the conference sites. So I think this is kind of the team's last chance to really go out with a win and before ushering the new era of the rivalry.
Absolutely, Justin. I think it's kind of weird how long we've come in this storied, matchup between Arkansas. And this is it feels like the final hoorah, but obviously it's not because next year you're going to see the Aggies.
It's going to be right back again.
Yeah, right, going back to the Arkansas's home turf. And it is a little bit weird because we're used to, seeing this game, usually in a primetime slot in AT&T Stadium, which is, it's its own monster of a stadium itself. So, what are you looking forward to most this Saturday, Justin?
I want to say good football, but the way these two teams are structured at the moment, it might not be the prettiest football.
I agree.
But it's going to be SEC football. It's going to be a big ground and pound for A&M. Obviously, the air raid just hasn't been there consistently this year, and there's always the issue at quarterback to see who's going to be playing, who's not, who's injured, and who's not between Connor Weigman and Marcel Reed. And then Arkansas's defense, their passing defense is below average. It's way down the line. But their Russian defense is very good. It's like top 15 in the country, I want to say, if not nearing the top 10. So we'll see how both teams scheme for that. It's going to be a very interesting one.
And kind of going off what I said earlier with how exciting and intense and really kind of down to the wire these games tend to be, the rivalry has also been really heavily one-sided with A&M winning 11 of the past 12 matchups. That lone Arkansas win coming in 2021 by a 20-10 margin, I think. So A&M has really come out on the right side of these back-and-forth games the vast majority of the time. And so I think that's something that, I don't know what that happens to be, but A&M's got that it factor that kind of pushes it over the edge and really gives it that extra something to make the 3-hour drive back with a win most of the time.
Absolutely. And I feel like we kind of had that factor last game here at home versus Bowling Green, of all people. So it was, I do remember fourth quarter just sitting there in the stands and feeling like, wow, it felt like we just played a top SEC school. Like, what's going on here? Even though they did look poor at times on certain aspects of the field, but it all came together and it all still pulled out a win. And I feel like that's the difference this year, and that's the difference maker going into AT&T Stadium this week. It feels different, and they play and they finish out games. I remember last year there was so many instances where it feels like just win out, just win the rest of the football game, not the first 20 minutes, just the last 5, and that's what happened. That's what happened last game, and it's a new sensation for many Aggie fans because it doesn't seem like they've had that kind of mentality in a long time, and it goes back to several key instances on offense and defense. Let's go ahead and just start breaking down. First off, just the quarterback controversy. What's going on here? I wrote an article on this myself, and I have my own take on this, but I want to hear y'all's first.
Yeah, so I think it is a bit of a good problem to have because you've got two guys that have shown they're capable of doing well with this offense. I know Connor's best game this season came in the first half against McNeese. I know that's also his last game. I know he'd like to forget about that Notre Dame game. But like he showed last year in those first 4 games, that he's capable of leading the offense really well. And so Coach Mike Elko, he's got 2 really good options there at QB. Marcel Reed, I think, brings a new element into it with his legs and that dual threat ability. And kind of like we'll touch on in a minute, that may not be as much of an impact given the rushing defense that Arkansas boasts. That's something they've done really well in this season. And so I think whoever is in the game at quarterback, they're probably going to be more inclined to go through the air and air it out against an Arkansas passing defense that is the worst in the SEC. So I think this game is really going to lean on the passing attack for the Aggies. And if A&M is going to put points on the board, it's probably going to be through the arm of Marcel or Connor.
And I wonder if we actually see Terry Bussey become a wide receiver. In these games, he's been basically the main running option on jet sweeps and stuff.
Yeah.
He's obviously a very big threat, but I wonder if Klein fully deploys him on the offensive side as a receiver, especially against Arkansas.
Yeah, I'm wondering as well if he gets in that scheme, because I do remember always seeing him on a jet sweep or always seeing him on a pitched option toss. Like it's never a go run a 20-yard, route. Like it's not like that. It's not the same with a Moose Muhammad or a Jade Walk. Like you're not seeing the same types of routes. And I did see and look up the rushing defense for Arkansas. They are 14th in the country right now, allowing. Ooh.
It's like 86
yeah,
yards.
82 a game is what it's looking like. Yeah, no, that's very, very tough, especially since I believe Marcel had, I think, 80 himself last game. So it really goes.
I think he got to 91. If I want to say,
yeah, just over the 80 mark.
Almost 100.
Yeah, and I think if they go the Marcel Reed route, he will be able to get something done with his legs, but it's going to be in these explosive plays. It's not going to be a let me get 6-7 yards for a first down. It's going to be he's going to get loose, I think, if he gets any yards. And I think that goes to the more explosiveness that he brings rather than sitting in the pocket and doing what Connor Wigman does, which is he finds his targets and he launches it out, and you kind of just have to pray if it goes in our receiver's hands or not. And I feel like having that option with Marcel, it does work better under the Colin Klein offense that, our new OC is brung on. And it looks like the receivers as well, that with the routes and the comfortability, they look better arguably under Marcel, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that, Justin?
I completely agree. I think his legs and his freedom are outside the pocket. It gives the teams more freedom, not with Reed himself, but just the entire offense. Like you said, his scrambling ability is not like, especially against Arkansas, is probably not going to be like a 6-7 yard every time, but it might be, in my opinion, it might be one of those like Johnny Manziel type of plays where he just goes crazy in the pocket, just like three circles around and then finds a person. So we might see something crazy like that. But I mean, he has. It's also been a very small sample size, granted, but in the games that he has played, the offense just seems to click. Albeit that Bowling Green game was a little bit of a wayward, bad or not bad, but a little bit of a stagnant offense at times. But still, a win is a win. And I think, in my personal opinion, I would give the nod to Reed. He's been doing everything that the coaches have been asked. We haven't seen this type of backup play in forever. I mean, if we had him whenever, like 3 years ago against in the Zach Calzada era. Well, I would have been more happy with Reed over the other A&M backups respectively, but he's done everything that the coaches have asked for him. He hasn't made any mistakes yet, so yeah.
I think I'm with you. I think kind of like we were talking about before we went on air, if Wigman's not 100%, and I don't think you need to force him into this game, because I think Marcel Chen, he's perfectly capable of leading the offense, and I think that game at Florida really showed that was kind of the pinnacle of what he's capable of with that dual threat ability. He can throw the ball really well with a couple touchdowns. He uses his legs really well. He got a touchdown that game. He can scramble to make plays happen, kind of like you were talking, a little Manziel-esque if we want to go that far. So I think it's kind of a luxury to have a QB that can make plays like that. And to his credit, Wigman has shown a bit of an ability to do that also, but I just think Marcel is a lot more comfortable when it comes to using his legs. And it's another, like I touched on, another dimension to the offense where Colin Klein can design plays, design QB runs for Marcel to use. And we were talking about Terry Bussey earlier, and I think that's really exciting because no A&M player has really been used in a way that Bussey has through the first 4 games of the season, where whether it's jet sweeps or handoffs or going for passes. Like, they can utilize him in so many ways on both sides of the ball if they wanted to where I would love to see him kind of get more involved. You can definitely tell they're trying to, but they're kind of easing him into it. No massive plays other than that 65-yard touchdown against McNeese. But I think he's another weapon that can, do him on both sides of the ball and really bring a new element to that offense.
I agree, Luke. And another receiver that we haven't had the time to talk about as much lately has been Cyrus Allen. He, transfer, really good, junior. He's not, too far out of the program yet. He's not, on that senior category, graduate category yet. But he seems like a breath of fresh air when it comes to actually having options when it goes to throwing the ball. And, he's so far the leading receiver with 10 receptions, 181 yards, and a touchdown. So it goes to show that new names are popping up. It's not the same Noah Thomas, Ja'Day Walker. There's, all different kinds of new weapons that they've had. They even have, the tight end Theo Armstrong from Sweden. Mm-hmm. And I've had a class with him before. He's a very nice guy. He's very much a sleeper when it comes to having another option out there that's a big body that can take a hit while going down for a catch. And you saw that twice already in the end zone. So I really think having some weapons like that, like Cyrus Allen, like Theo, really brings some more dynamic capabilities to this offense. And that's what they needed in combined with their quarterback, Marcel, or if it's Wigman. I fully believe that either way it's going to work out in an explosive way on offense this Saturday.
I think it'd be wrong if we haven't mentioned the play of Le'Veon Moss too.
Oh,
absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Him, as much as we talk about Reed and Weigman, Moss has been holding it down for us.
Moss has really been the offense. He's been the consistent one, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Especially in the running game, he has been the shining lights, and he's been the driving force for us getting, all the way to the pylon every drive. I mean, it last year we didn't really have that one back that really came out and shined as much. You had that Amari Daniels and Moss combination as well, but you also had some other guys that got their shine. And
it was supposed to be Ruben Owens this year too.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got guys like that, but it's good to have one specific guy to step up and be the leader and be like, hey, if we are getting stuck in a rhythm, why not getting stuck in a rhythm with this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Averaging 5.6 a carry. I mean, absolutely. Go with your top guy that's getting, he's got 63 carries already, and you would think with Colin Klein's offense, they are leaning towards the more run-heavy schemes, and it works with a guy like Moss in your backfield.
And kind of like Justin was saying, credit to Le'Veon for really stepping up. Ruben Owens goes out for this season, and now Moss is really the bell cow of that rushing attack, and it's really great to have guys like Amari Daniels, a dude that could start at a lot of other programs around the country. I imagine he's a great backup. EJ Smith, Emmitt Smith's son, he's another solid backup back there that's had some good runs this season. So that depth is really great, but Le'Veon has certainly stood among the rest of them. And kind of on that same note, when it comes to receivers, like we mentioned earlier, I think it's a really talented room. We've talked about Moose Muhammad, Noah Thomas, Ja'Day Walker, all those guys. But no one has really stood out above the rest to kind of be that go-to guy. I don't think anybody of us would have thought that Theo Nordstrom would be the leader in touchdowns with
no idea
2 touchdowns on 3 catches this season.
Back to back.
Exactly, pretty good efficiency. But so far, I think we're still waiting on like Ja'Day or Noah or Moose to kind of step out above the rest and prove that they're the guy, that they're wide receiver one. Cyrus Allen too, and interesting with Cyrus, he didn't even have any catches against Bowling Green, so all those stats of his are only through 3 games. So
absolutely,
they got a lot of guys they could go to.
They do, they really do. Let's kind of pivot more towards the defensive side here for Saturday. So looking at this defensive line coming into the year, we fully imagined we'd see more commotion up in front of the quarterback, the opposing quarterback. What do y'all think is the key catalyst on why we're not seeing that as much, and why we're only seeing, 5 sacks for the entire 4 games we played?
Well, I think the main reason is probably the absence of one Edwin Cooper. His talent is just irreplaceable. I don't think. I mean, everyone obviously knew he was going to be gone, but I don't think not a lot of people knew just how much of an impact that he had on this defense. And as young and as good as Torian York is, of course, nobody can really replace Coop. But slowly but surely, we're getting to that point where we're building our identity in the trenches once again. It's slowly but surely, and it happened in the Bowling Green game, but it just needs to be consistent because I feel like there are times where we just let up and then a big run just gets ripped off. But our secondary has really surprised me this year.
Oh yeah, and you could definitely tell that run defense was really rough through the first 2 games against Notre Dame McNeese, letting up close to 200 yards in both games. And then against Florida Bowling Green, they've allowed less than 100. So you can definitely tell it's getting better. But yeah, like Braxton is saying, I think we all thought they'd be a lot more dominant this season, yet they really haven't filled up the stat sheet when it comes to sacks and tackles for loss and that sort of thing. And though there's so many playmakers back there with Nick Scorton, Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, Cassius Howell, Albert Regis. I know I'm forgetting a few guys just on accident, but it's that stacked a unit. So I think we're still waiting on them to break out and everything, and they're going to have a tall task ahead of them facing against this Arkansas rushing attack. You've got Taylon Green at QB and another dual threat guy, Jaquindon Jackson at running back. So they're definitely going to be they'll have to put their work in for this game, but against a run heavier team, then all the more ability for them to fill up the stat sheet.
Absolutely. And looking at our secondary as well, that's been what I've been honestly most impressed with on our defensive front this year. I mean, you've got already 6 interceptions on the year.
We have more picks than sacks this year.
I was going to bring that up.
Marcus Ratcliffe with 3 already.
Yeah, exactly.
Unreal. And, you've got not only his capability as well, but, you've got guys like Bryce Anderson. You've got guys like Javion Thomas. I mean, you've got all different kinds of weapons in this defense, and it seems like most of these guys have been sleepers on our roster previously, and now getting their chance to shine.
Will Lee has shown a lot.
Absolutely,
he's been so
Blanket,
consistent. Yeah,
Kansas State transfer.
Yes, and our newcomers, that's been the highlight. I feel the newcomers, and then the guys that have bought their time.
Javon Thomas.
Absolutely, and even You see Scorton's ability on the line, and you see all of these other defensive, Torian York, Scooby. You see all of their capabilities, and you're just waiting for them all to put it together for SEC play. That's what you're waiting on, and that's what we're gonna see. I think. I think they're going to finally play together and play like a consistent defense, like they came in and predicted to be.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so final remarks before we get this podcast kicked off for today.
It's been I didn't realize how much of a mirror our offense and defense are. Like our run game and our passing defense, they weren't the expected main focal points of the offense and defense, but they have been. And then our passing game and our D line were supposed to be the main focal point, but they haven't been. It's been a very weird parallel between our offenses and defenses.
It has.
And we're waiting for the main players for our D-line and our wide receivers to show up.
That's a really good point.
It's been to finally
That's
show
a really
up and
good
break
observation.
out. So it's been interesting to see, and hopefully sooner or later, they actually break out.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see come Saturday, but one last thing. Score prediction. What are you thinking, Justin?
Oh man, it's it's not going to be high scoring in my opinion. So I want to say, 17-13.
Wow.
Hey,
we were talking about that Arkansas Auburn game and that ugly brand of football.
It might be a little bit ugly here.
Yeah, I think I'm going for a bit more offense. I'm thinking 34-20. But like I said, with this game, you kind of throw all those predictions out the window, so this might look really bad on me later on.
I'd rather it be more high scoring than my 17-13 picks.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I'm going with 21-27. That's going to be my final pick. And yeah, that just about does it for today. Once again, thank you, Luke, for joining us.
Hey, thank y'all. Y'all
Thank
are
you,
killing
Mr.
it.
White.
I appreciate having me.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and we'll see y'all next week.